Welcome to Significance Breed Success. I'm Daniel Puder, your host. Today we're here with Amit Mehta, who is a rock star. He's based out of San Antonio, Texas. He's a venture capitalist. He is a physician. He's an investor. You're a founder. You're into real estate. You just love business, right?
I do. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on today. I know it's crazy. You're probably running around with your head cut off. Let me ask you, what got you into? Obviously, I find that a lot of physicians they're not business people usually. How do you connect the ability to be a physician and in the venture capital, investor world?
I think a lot of it stems from sort of mindset of folks who are STEM, science driven and like to tinker. I went into medicine just because I had a very sort of engineering kind of brain. Like to tinker with stuff when I was a kid, and then I went that route, and as I got further into training, I realized that the healthcare system was broken. Lots and lots of problems, from delivery of care, paying for care, access to care. And as all those things went through, I kind of figured out that one of the biggest ways I could make an impact was as an investor.
So do you find, I find that the healthcare is called healthcare, but it's really like a sick care. And the healthcare is more the preventive side of it. I mean, insurance, they say it's health insurance, but it's really, it creates health, hopefully, but it's really when we get sick. Where do you think the next 10 years are going to bring us in this space? Because I love this space, and some of my friends are doctors, and they're into the prevention medicine, they're into energy, they're into new ways to be able to bring health to people, whether eating, some of the stuff that's coming out in nutrition and science and everything else is adding a lot of value to us. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, so one of the key problems that I see in the healthcare is exactly what you said, is that it's more sick care. And so the system pays to take care of folks who are sick. It doesn't pay in order to prevent sickness. But in order to basically balance this system that we have from an economic perspective as well as a population perspective, we're going to have to prevent disease. So on the investment side, one of our core theses at our venture fund is healthcare and healthcare IT. So I get to see a lot of what is coming in the next 10 years, a lot of technology, a lot of applications that people are working on that are going to fix this problem. And that is a significant focus of a lot of the tech that you're going to see in successful companies in healthcare in the next 3 to 5 years.
So I've heard this concept of, and I love what you're doing. It's builders.vc, right? Is your website?
Correct. Yep,
I love
that's our fund.
what you're doing here. It says we help founders modernize. You guys are really adding that value to the healthcare industry, and I'm guessing you're looking at what was versus what going to be and building those new tech platforms. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we're deeply involved in assessing and investing in companies that are changing this antiquated industry. Our particular thesis is around using technology to fix those things. And to me, that is sort of the biggest change in evolution in healthcare is the application of technology to such a huge drain on GDP. So tech can make an industry like healthcare very efficient, both from all of the different facets that go into healthcare, which is patients, providers, payers, developers of treatment, whether it's drug or medical device. Everybody can become more efficient with technology, and we can reach out to more people and take care of more people efficiently if we have good tech.
So I heard from another investor this last week. He said they have now like this AI operated machines that can once you get an MRI done or a scan of your body, whether an X-ray or whatever it is, they have machines now that can tell you what's wrong better than the best doctors. Is something like that coming, or something like that existing?
I'm an interventional radiologist. That's the kind of doctor I am. So I actually read MRI, CT, X-rays, and do minimally invasive surgery. So I can tell you this is a very controversial subject. And I'll tell you from the people on the ground, as one of the guys who both develops that technology, I'm the chief medical officer for an artificial intelligence company, an investor into those technologies, and a consumer user of that technology. That's not what's going to happen. The best example I like to give is when calculators came out in the 650s and 60s, people said accountants are going to be wiped out because calculators will fix everything. This is the same. We're going to use AI and machine learning as an adjunct to what we do, and it's going to make us better as physicians. There's still a human element to this that cannot be replicated in 2020 by a computer. Now, this, I'm not talking about a computer is better at finding or detecting a abnormality. So if there's a spot on an MRI, you can train a computer all day long to be better than a human to find that spot. But then understanding what that spot is in the context of what's wrong with that patient is not feasible right now with AI ML.
So I love that from you. I appreciate that because I hear things and I want to know the truth. Obviously, you know, people tell me things all the time and I'm like, okay, it's kind of crazy. You know, my brother's a psychiatrist, so he works with the mind a lot. And there's nothing like this coming out in his space from what I've seen to be able to help the mind necessarily. Like Dr. Daniel Amen maybe has created some really cool things on doing some scans of the brain. But I don't find that they have been able to create a platform, a computer or system yet to be able to say, when they go underneath it, the computer goes, ding, just give them this, you know, vitamin C or give them this prescription and all the brain problems are done.
No, yeah. So what we're using this technology right now, I'll give you a good example of where AI machine learning is really good, and it's something that we both invest in and use as consumers. Is if you have a stroke, so you have a bleed in your brain, which is called a hemorrhagic stroke, and you're brought into the emergency room. Right now, what happens is you get a CAT scan of your head. That CAT scan gets put into a queue of CAT scans that are to be read by the radiologist. Now, CAT scan number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 may be patients with headaches and normal, but have the same symptoms as the headache of the stroke. But what you'd like to do is have the one with the stroke read quicker and faster so that that patient can get treatment, while the normal who has just a headache would be put further down the list. There's tech now that the AI/ML will read the scan ahead of time, will pick up that there's a bleed, and then tell the radiologist, put this one to the top of your list, read this one next. Because this patient, if we read faster, will provide better care. And that kind of algorithm is here in 2020, it's coming, and it's something that we do use.
So I love that because if somebody walks into a hospital 10 or 20 years ago, it takes forever to get them potentially the results or the specifics. And now you guys can make sure they get the care faster and healed. Where's it going in the next 10 or 20 years? Are we going to be able to, you know, I've heard these things called micro nanobots, so we could potentially pop them in our system and they tell us if we're going to get sick, or they fix some problems, you know, whether, you know, the blood clot or like, where is the tech going and where do you think it's going to be in, let's say by 2040?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to predict that kind of thing because if you look at medicine even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the revolutionary pace we're going at with, you know, with internet, tech, nanobots, all these kinds of emerging technologies, it goes faster and slower than you think it does. So you see amazing things, you know, you watch Minority Report or Star Trek, those kinds of things, everything looks really cool. Getting that stuff to market is a little more difficult. So there is revolutionary technology coming out. There's no question. You know, if you look, it's difficult when we sit here today and we're in the life we're in the, you know, the years we've lived. But if you look back a few generations, you know, there wasn't even basic technology 20 years ago that now we take for granted. I mean, you come in, you could get an MRI in the ER now. Even 10 years ago, that was difficult. So the leaps and bounds that happen, especially in healthcare, is incredible. And we're looking at almost a doubling of medical knowledge every 8 years. So that's how much new information that we're digesting in medicine on a decade to decade basis.
I love this space. I'm glad you're doing a lot of work because it's really going to add a lot of value to people's quality of life. You're for your VC firm. It looks like you guys are in the real estate world too. What do you guys spend most of your time with in real estate? Is it residential, commercial? Is it just the tech side of it, or do you actually buy brick and mortar?
No, it's fully on the tech side. So as a fund, we're investing in startup entrepreneurs who are revolutionizing industry with tech. So our thesis and our focus is on taking that as an antiquated industry, which is paper and Excel, and putting it, techifying it. So our focus is on those companies. We're not buying hard assets or debt kind of equity structures.
I love it. So I just looked at your 5 companies and what you guys are doing on your site with the 3D design. I love the project manager and superintendents. So can you explain maybe one of these companies on here? Because a lot of people might look at it like, hey, I buy real estate at this point. I think that's the norm, right? Not as many people maybe involve themselves with the real estate tech side of it. So what are you finding in the real estate market? And what's really making a huge impact? Is it making the, like your company right here, field wire, with
Yeah.
helping construction foremen, project managers, superintendents to collaborate while they're on the field? I'm guessing the flow of the job gets to go a little bit faster based on there's a system or a framework, right?
Correct. Yeah. So most of our investments are in, like we said, we talk about taking what's an antiquated industry, so people using paper and Excel, and then making it tech enabled. So, I mean, a good example of a company in our portfolio is Bowery. They're a company out of New York. It's in the appraisal side of real estate. So, I mean, I don't know how much real estate you guys have done, but typically if you buy a house, for example, you are getting a loan. You have to get an appraisal done by a third party. An appraiser comes in, and an appraiser is a licensed professional, but they make an assessment of what that property is worth, and they provide to the bank so the bank understands whether there's value in the amount they're going to give you your loan. The process of doing an appraisal is fairly organic. I mean, they take comparables from around the area. They do a cost approach of what they think it would cost to build, but there's very little data that goes into deciding what that number is. It's more around what is occurring in that area, what that appraiser as an expert feels. Now, if you extrapolate this to the commercial side, take a 50-story building in downtown New York. It's pretty tough to come up with an appraisal that just based on doing comps, and you have to be basically a construction expert to do a replacement by cost appraisal. These guys have taken a lot of data and put that all together so that they can use data as an appraisal firm in real time. So they take all of the inputs that go, including the construction, but the rents, the leases, the reconstruction costs, what the banks have done, all of that goes into deciding what the value of that is, and then they can reuse that data as well as have a network effect of having more data. So when they get the building next door and all the data with there in that building, they can then go back and do appraisals on the subject property. In some of these areas, banks, customers require appraisals on an ongoing basis every year. If you're a private lender or if you're a mortgage originator, you need that kind of stuff on an ongoing basis. So they're able to provide that much quicker. Right now, sometimes it takes these appraisals 30, 60, 90 days to get that information.
That's amazing. So, Amit, we have online schools, and then we're developing an online school, but we also have brick and mortars, and it's challenging sometimes to understand all the pieces. If we have to get a contractor here and an architect here and all those, so I can see the flow, making it so much simpler to understand the tech side of it. We don't have a tech piece like that. Like I'll look at what you guys have to offer because we want something in multiple locations. We're adding 3 more this year. We're buying 6 more next year. So it's interesting on how we can grow faster and make sure we have a track and a framework. So, okay, I found another one. This one sticks out to me. Memphis Meats. It says that you're developing meat produced directly from animal cells without the need to raise or slaughter actual animals. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at, I know you guys are, you're an athlete, and so
Yep.
Food is an essential fuel, right? And they're in the alternative, what I call alternative meat space, which I'm a vegan actually, so I eat a lot of this stuff of plant-based meats, soy-based meats, TVP, those kinds of things.